Hockey Hotline. NHL training camps opened across the board today for all 30 teams in the National Hockey League.
Really? All right, here we go.
Okay, let me just run through storylines in these camps. And if you're a hockey fan, the O Canada Network, you're invited to jump on board to give me a response. Columbus Blue Jackets open their camp today under the cloud cover of the terrible death of Johnny Hockey. And they're trying to deal with that. B, they're trying to deal with the loss of a guy who scored 230 goals over the course of his career. So that's a big storyline with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Washington Capitals. Good luck to you. You got Alexander Ovechkin. Now you got Pierre-Luc Dubois, who came from the Kings. I'll be interested to see if the Capitals management can unlock the mystery of who this big power forward is and why he doesn't play like a power forward. Keep an eye on that. Montreal. Your turn to solve the problem with Patrick Laine. This guy talked himself out of Winnipeg. This guy talked himself out of Columbus. This guy got himself suspended last year because of substance problems. Montreal took him on. This is a great hockey player, goal scorer, but has just never done it on a consistent basis and all that junk off the ice. Toronto Maple Leafs, historic franchise. They got 2 veterans that they've just told yesterday, we're not going to do a contract extension right now. A longtime center, former captain John Tavares, high-scoring right winger Mitch Marner have been told, you play out the final year of your contract. Both of them making $10 million a season. That's going to be fascinating to see because the Leafs have taken care of all their other players. By the way, Toronto just signed Max Pacioretty. Scored 330 goals over the course of his career. That's a pretty good hockey player. So keep an eye on that. He's a veteran coming off injuries. Colorado, this is not good news. Gabe Landeskog, who is their superstar captain, suffered a really bad knee injury 2 years ago, underwent kind of creative knee cartilage replacement surgery. He has practiced. He's done all the rehab. He's been fanatical about that. He's still not ready to play after 2 years of intensive rehab. I just don't know that he's ever going to play again. And they've also got problems with 2 other guys, including Val Nichushkin, big power forward, scored a lot of goals. He's been in substance abuse programs 3 times, and he's not in camp right now. So Colorado's got issues. Ducks, orange country, new uniforms, really look cool.
Nice.
Do they have good players to put in the new uniforms? That's an iffy thing. It's going to be fascinating because today on the ice, they debuted Cutter Gauthier, young All-American, Boston College, scored a ton of goals. Last year, this week, we were talking about Leo Carlsson, and came from Sweden. He played really well as a part-time rookie. They've just got a plethora of really young players. They just don't have a lot of veterans around those young players. And by the way, they still have Trevor Zegras is still there, and the rumor is they're shopping him in a trade. Cam Fowler, their 10-year veteran defenseman, still there, and he's agreed to waive his no-trade clause if it's the right deal. And goaltender John Gibson is still being held hostage there. So the Ducks are really young, really good young skaters and draft picks. They got all these issues with veterans that they're trying to move. LA Kings, last chance saloon. If they don't go deep in the playoffs this time, I don't think it's ever going to happen. Adrian Kempe, Anze Kopitar, Drew Doughty. I mean, these are high-paid veterans, and a team has just not been able to get beyond the first round of the playoffs because the Edmonton Oilers have been the opponent. It's got to happen this year, or it's never, ever going to happen. Then they might be facing a massive rebuild. And in Edmonton, we talked extensively of the greatness of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and how they pushed to get the Stanley Cup Finals and almost doggone won it last season. Well, they did something different in the offseason. Every veteran wants to finish up with a chance to get a ring. They signed 3 veteran forwards to play on maybe their 3rd and 4th lines who all have a history of scoring goals. The guys are coming in on low-price contracts because they want a ring. Jeff Skinner came from Buffalo, had over 400 goals over the course of his career. They just signed Mike Hoffman, who scored 300-plus goals. He was with Montreal and Florida before that. And they got Victor Arvidsson, a pretty good two-way player who can pot some goals. He came from the LA Kings. So it's interesting. Usually your 3rd and 4th line guys are just young guys who serve roles. They're bringing in all these veterans who've potted a lot of goals other places. And if you can start getting goal scoring on your 3rd and 4th line to go with McDavid and Draisaitl and Evander Kane, et cetera, you're going to be a really dangerous team. So Edmonton's taking a little bit different tact as to how they're going to build their third and fourth lines on the team. So those are some of the hot storylines today, the first day everybody on the ice across the entire National Hockey League. And John Riley, with beer in one hand and hockey puck in the other, banging on the plexiglass behind the penalty box, has got an opinion.
Well, how do NHL teams conduct their camps? Because I think of baseball, they have all the minor league guys and they're playing scrimmages and then they've got multiple fields. Is hockey the same way?
The Ducks opened today. They had 66 on the training camp roster. I think the max limit you can have is 70. They do a 3-tiered practice. They have the veterans practice first shift, 9 a.m. hour. I think at 10:30, the next group of players comes in and practice. And then usually the 11:45 or 12 noon practice is pretty much for all the young guys just to get their legs underneath them and skate, etc. Those are the guys that'll wind up either going back to junior hockey, or maybe some might be go back to Europe. Some of them might wind up here in San Diego with a goal. So it's a 3-schedule thing because you got so many guys on the ice, and that's what they do. And then they'll start playing games, and not everybody plays in every game. You'll play a game against San Jose on a Friday, and then you'll come back on a Saturday. Maybe you play Las Vegas. So you have one group of guys who'll play the first preseason game, then another group of that roster of 66 will play the second game. And then as you get into the fourth and fifth preseason games, then they start making roster cuts, and your roster kind of comes together. But that's how they do it because you got so many guys in camp.
When they go to the preseason games, do they keep the veterans like on the bench, kind of like the NFL does, or do they play them?
No, they play them. Now, whether those guys are playing all out, I don't think so. Guys do not. The veterans do not want to get hurt.
Right.
I've had general managers tell me, watch this in camp. And I was at the Ducks camp. I went to the Kings camp, and the veterans, I'm not saying going through the motions. They are skating when they scrimmage and all that, but it's not 110%. You got the rookies going 110% trying to make the team or impress somebody.
Yeah.
And so the rookies are of the opinion, hey, I played pretty well against the Kings' number one line. Well, the Kings' number one line was just kind of going through the motions here, pal. You got to opening night. It's like a different world for these kids. So it's fascinating to see how those camps work.
Yeah, they're growing up on the job.
Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, that's the latest